So it just gave them the ability to just get after the quarterback.
Yeah, I agree. The Seattle back end. I mean, it's such an advantage in the NFL if you can rush the passer with four guys. It's just such a massive advantage. Speaking as a Jets fan, dude, that was one of the reasons the Jets defense was so good when Saleh was here. They could rush with four guys, and then you had guys like Sauce Gardner on the back end just shutting receivers down. You could do so much with if my math's correct here, the other seven guys when you're able to just rush with four. It's incredible. And Seattle did it, or at least this season did it better, did it better than everybody this year with how good they were able to do that on a consistent basis.
You go back to when the Giants beat the Patriots in those Super Bowls,
Mm-hmm.
games that I'm pretty sure if you go back and look at, I would love to see what the lines were for those games. That Pat team was going to go undefeated, and the Giants could beat them because they got pressure with four.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that will forever remain true in football. If you can get pressure with four, and when you have a guy that can coach at the level that Seattle can coach, Mike McDonald is a defensive coach, and now he can blitz and get creative and not have to worry about it. You're always going to have a chance to win football games.
And I think that reigns true even from last year too. We saw kind of the same thing last year in the Super Bowl with the Eagles and the Chiefs. How good the Eagles were at generating pressure.
100%.
Yeah, if you could generate pressure, I mean, really, if you look at it, you win these games based on in the trenches, your defensive line and your offensive line.
Yep.
And the Seattle offensive line is okay. They did fine today considering how good the Patriots defense is. But even like looking back at last year, how good the Eagles defensive line was, how good the Eagles offensive line was too last year. If you have a real good offensive line, real good defensive line, you're going to win a lot of games in this league.
Well, to your point very quickly, and then I'll let you get back to the recap. I think what we're starting to see the NFL transition back to is if you can build a really good football team around your quarterback, you don't need the 50, $60 million guy. And, me being a Dallas fan, you'll hear me say this a lot. The Cowboys have a $60 million quarterback. They haven't done a great job putting stuff around him. I would venture to guess if we were to rank quarterbacks in the NFL, Sam Darnold might not be top 15. I don't know if Jalen Hurts would be top 15 right now.
Yeah.
Those are your last two Super Bowl winning quarterbacks, and both those front offices. And again, when we talk about Seattle, I'm going to take some time to talk about the moves John Schneider has made over the last 2 years. If you can build a really good football team around your quarterback, get guys that can rush the quarterback, get a good enough offensive line, get guys in the back end that can play, and then find some guys. And it helps when you have Jackson Smith and Jigba, Kenneth Walker, and Cooper Kupp catching the football for you, and Rashid Shaheed doing what he did. If you can get guys like that and just get your quarterback to manage your game, you can win a Super Bowl.
Yeah, John Schneider, all of a sudden maybe future Hall of Fame general manager. He's built two different Seattle Super Bowl winners now in his tenure in Seattle. Which is pretty remarkable that he's gotten the time. I mean, could easily have three, of course, if we get into the one that they lost to the Pats. But yeah, three trips to the Super Bowl for a John Schneider team. But we'll get into it now. I stopped at the third quarter here. As I mentioned, May was really struggling, really frustrated. New England finally got their first down of the second half thanks to a defensive holding penalty because they punted on their first 6 of 7 drives. And then May ended up fumbling, and then Seattle ended up getting the ball, really good field position. That's when Darnold threw his touchdown to A.J. Barner. Seattle went up 19-0 at that point. And then basically at that point, you're thinking, oh, well, this game's probably over. Drake May comes out next, hits Matt Collins for 2 really big gains, one of them being a touchdown, and then Seattle went up 19-7. Then it kind of felt like, then New England got the stop, right? And it kind of felt like Drake May was starting to finally settle in. He was starting to get going a little bit. And then that's when he made that really poor throw, that basically Hail Mary prayer that he threw up that Julian Love picked off. And Seattle ended up leading 22-7 from that point, kicked another field goal. And then there was the sack fumble that Devin Witherspoon forced that was picked up by and Wenyu, I think he picked it up for Seattle, and they ended up going up 29-7. And then it was basically it from there. Drake May hit Ramondre Stevenson for a touchdown late, and then that's how we got our final of 29-13. But yeah, as we've been talking about, the big story in the game, the Seattle defense just being just being incredible what they were able to do today, what they've been able to do all season. They're not a team that really got spoken about that much during the season. Maybe it has something to do with, they're all the way up in the Pacific Northwest, and you don't really see them they weren't really on TV like right as much as you would think. But
Yep.
yeah, a team that goes 14-3.
I mean, 14-3 won the NFC West. I mean, we can argue that is the best. I mean, I would say it's the best division in football, and they went out there and they won that division this year. So yeah, not only did they do that, they win that division. They're the 1 seed. It's crazy to kind of talk about them flying under the radar, but it at least like to someone like me, it sure felt like they flew under the radar.
Yeah, they absolutely did. You always heard people were talking a lot about, right, the Patriots, another 14-3 team with Drake May, and people were talking about the Broncos a lot too. But yeah, Seattle, they really were the best team all year. Not saying that they were a great team, but I really believe that they were the best team all year. And at the end of the season here, the Seattle Seahawks were crowned Super Bowl champions as the best team in the league, and they like we just said, they backed it up all year to be as good as they were. But yeah, so look, happily the NFL season is officially over. So us Jets or Cowboys fans, we can start looking forward to next year. Start looking to free agency next month and the draft the next month after. I'm sure for our listeners, Tom's been doing a great job putting together some of his drafting scouting reports. We've been posting them to the website, which is www.loftsportsus.com. So make sure to check out some of his draft write-ups on the prospects for the 2026 NFL Draft. Tom, thanks for joining me today, breaking down the recap of the Super Bowl, man.
Do you mind if I just run through? I just want to take a minute and talk about John Schneider. Do you mind if I do that?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so watching this game and you look at this team and even it, I feel like this starts 2 years ago, right? You mentioned John Schneider, and you mentioned the job he's done. He helped build the Legion of Boom. They won a Super Bowl. Probably should have won back to back, right? A year ago, they let go of Pete Carroll, Hall of Fame coach, won them a Super Bowl. He brings in Mike McDonald. Coached with the Ravens, coached at Michigan, kind of a hardball, transplant in that family. What he's done in 2 years is like kind of remarkable. And I think when you look at some teams in their front offices, Seattle is definitely in this category now of front office that I consider them just like one of the best run teams in football. Teams like them, the Rams, the 49ers. I throw the Steelers in that category. I throw the Ravens, although they're teetering in that category. The Bills had been in that category, right? And I think something that gets lost on when you're talking about team building is not just like who you draft and who you sign, which I have a list of that I want to go through in a second, but also like some of the decisions on players you choose not to retain, right? Like he chose to let go of Jamal Adams, someone they traded a lot for. He chose to let go of Tyler Lockett, a guy who'd been with that football team for a long time, to trade DK Metcalf, to trade Geno Smith. Those were big decisions for him to make. And on top of that, this is a football team that drafts really, really well. We talked about their offensive line. Who knows where it ranks in the NFL? All of those guys were drafted or brought in by the Seahawks and developed through what they do as a football team. Zabel was a first-round pick. I think the center, I don't have his name in front of me. I might have it on here somewhere. I think the center was an undrafted free agent. Like, they've done an outstanding job building this football team through the draft, but also taking the risk of getting rid of fan favorites. And then when you trade a guy like DK Metcalf, then taking the pick you get and trading up for a guy and Nick him, I'm going to butcher his name as I have all year, but in Wari, the safety from South Carolina, who they clearly liked because they gave up a second and a third round pick to move up to 35 to get him, and he was arguably the best player on their defense. If you look at their drafts, they have guys that contribute up and down. You look at their offseason, they signed Cooper Kupp, DeMarcus Lawrence. They signed Sam Darnold when a lot of people wouldn't have done that. I mean, I just don't think you can say enough about what John Schneider did for this football team. And then, of course, like you trade for Rashid Shaheed, that Ram game, I think, at Seattle, the game where they come back in the regular season, I think that's the game where everybody, maybe Seahawks fans already knew it. I don't know many Seahawks fans. At the school I work at, there's a Seahawks fan. He'll tell me tomorrow he knew from day one they were going to win a Super Bowl. I don't know how true that is. But I'm sure if you talk to anybody, that was probably the moment that most people were like, okay, this team's for real. And if they don't have Rashid Shaheed, they don't win that football game. So John Schneider has done an outstanding job. They have some big decisions they'll have to make in the offseason. What they want to do with Kenneth Walker. They're going to have to re-sign some of these guys in the secondary. You're going to have to figure out a JSN extension, a Devin Witherspoon extension. They have a lot of money to work with. But this is a guy, this GM, that, to your point, probably a Hall of Fame GM. I mean, 3 Super Bowl trips, he's 2-3. Mm-hmm. How many GMs can say that? If you're not in New England and you're not in Kansas City, not many can say that. So, I just wanted to give the Seahawks a couple minutes here. Fun offense, really, really good running back. They did this without Zach Charbonnet, which is kind of crazy too. And they have a defense that, if they can retain these pieces, and it'll be interesting. They have, I think, $70+ million to spend this offseason, but they have some guys they're going to have to make decisions on. This is a defense that could be good for a long time to come. So John Schneider built the Legion of Boom, and then he built this team. I had to take a couple minutes and give him his props.
Yeah, the dark side is what they referenced them as on the NBC broadcast. But yeah, he's done. Yeah, great defense that Schneider has built, and I agree. And just to touch on the point, I mean, you bring up a good point. Like, these organizations, right, that draft really well, and they go deep with scouting. They're signing these undrafted guys, or they're day 3 picks that just are able to contribute in different ways. They're obviously not becoming studs on the team, but they're capable guys that can contribute. I mean, it's typically what have we seen over the years? It's a lot of it's the same teams that make the Super Bowl: Patriots, Seahawks, Chiefs, Eagles, Rams. It's these organizations that just, they know what they're doing. They're the best at what they do. On a rare occasion, you'll see one team break through, like the Bengals or something like that on occasion. But for the most part, this is why we see the same collection of teams like over the past 10 years or so that consistently get the job done and get to the Super Bowl. So
yeah, to your point, very quickly, I did find where I had it. Charles Cross, drafted by the Seahawks. Gary Zabel, drafted by the Seahawks. Jalen Sundell was an undrafted player they signed, I think, a year ago. He didn't play a lot last year, but he played a decent amount this year. I'm pretty sure Anthony Bradford was drafted by this team, and Abraham Lucas, the right tackle, was drafted by this team. That was their most consistent, I believe, offensive line, and the offensive line that started today. So you talk about winning in the trenches. Their offensive line is all guys that they found in some way and coach them up. If you can do that, find guys, develop them, you're always going to have a chance to win. And the Seahawks do that as well as anybody in the NFL. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so great breakdown there. Congrats to the Seattle Seahawks on winning the Super Bowl 60. And we can now officially turn the page and look forward to the off season for free agency and the draft. And like I said, Tom's doing a great job on those scouting reports that he's been sending in. So looking to get you on, a couple more times, brother. Maybe talk some draft in the next couple of months. Maybe we'll run a mock draft, something like that.
Whenever you need me, I'm here. This is fun. I love doing this. I love talking football. Maybe at some point we'll do a postmortem on this Ranger season.
Oh, dude.
I'm sure we have a lot to talk about there. But no comment on the halftime show.
You know what? I didn't really pay much attention to it. So to be honest, right, we had the 2 halftime shows going on, right? So I wouldn't really pay much attention to either of them. At halftime, usually I'm trying to get stuff done around the house. So what was I doing? We had some people over for the Super Bowl, so I was kind of working on cleaning up and throwing stuff in the dishwasher. I was trying to take out the garbages. I was trying to I was basically running around for good 15 minutes during halftime. Some folks were watching one show, some folks were watching the other, and I was kind of just that's cool. I don't really care either way. So I'm, I heard kind of mixed reviews for the Bad Bunny one. People were telling me that the Turning Point one was really good.
I was joking. I didn't watch either. I'm with you. I'm doing stuff during halftime. I want to watch football. I hope everybody who watches halftime shows enjoyed them. I'm here for the football, so I was I was running around doing stuff, getting ready for bed.
Exactly. All right. Well, thanks, Tom, for joining me. Great Super Bowl recap. Once again, Brian for Loft Sports here. Check out our website at loftsportus.com. Also follow us at Loft Sports USA on X, YouTube, and TikTok. This is Brian Finnegan for my co-host here, Tommy Schultz, signing off. Talk to y'all later.
See you guys.